Alright, now part 2. The part 1 was, I mean, this is a series where, I give up reasons for us South Indians to be proud of ourselves. The first part, the reason, the one for the first reason was in the first part where I told you guys about how we have had a really good existence so far, and even if we were to diminish in population by 500 folds, we are still having it good in this world, right? So, from an existential perspective, we've had a really good thing so far. So, that was covered in part one. In this part two, I'm gonna be telling you why I think we, as individual specimens, are a better kind, right? So, so this is about why we are a good individual, right? So before getting on to uh, what makes us a good individual, let me just define you what is good, how, for an organism. What makes an organism a better one, right? And so before that, this also needs to, before coming to that, I also have to get to the purpose of an organism and the purpose of life and all that, right? Um, so it's gonna start from what we all studied in class 6. We studied about amoeba and the single celled organisms and what it does and what not. So I'm sure you have all seen some version of this amoebas, eating food and splitting up and all that, right? So this image is right here in front of you now. So what is happening here, right? Just from a higher level, you consider any organisms are engines of self-preservation, right? They want to preserve what is theirs, right? So that's why an organism does these things like, eat, move, reproduce, and all that, and then other versions of all that, higher versions of all that, um, like, going, getting your skills, getting a job, getting a salary, getting a wife, eating well, mating with a healthy specimen, and all that, just so that you can preserve yourself and preserve your genes by having offsprings and all that, right? And it's not just that, you also feel, just like you feel an attachment to your offsprings and your genetically related ones, you also have an affinity towards all the things that you created. For example, your language. And I mean, if you have a contest between Einstein and Tesla, even though he didn't create, Einstein would uh, uh, find, would, try really hard to make the general theory of relativity the most a really a really viable theory of explaining some of the complicated stuff and physics out there. And even though Tesla didn't put forward the ether theory, because he strongly believes in it and he's done a lot to propagate it, he would want to know, he would find pleasure if he comes to know that ether theory has been accepted a lot worldwide and all that, right? So because he's responsible for the propagation of all this, so we also have affinity towards all the things that we created, or all the things that our ancestors created, which we have taken up and all that. Um, so for example, you feel an affinity towards, fellow Bangaloreans or fellow Tamilians or fellow Kannadigas or whatever, because it's not just the genetic affinity, but you know let's say you're a Tamil novelist, right? Your dad or grandfather was a Tamil novelist, and then the ideas of your grandfather has been read by many in Tamil Nadu, even though they might be of different origins and all that. Um, I mean, they might be of different lineage. So those guys might have read your grandfather's ideas, and uh, that your grandfather's ideas would have shaped them, and so there's a little bit of your granddad's impact in those guys. So you obviously feel an affinity towards those guys, um, that way, right? So that sort of affinities also is like, well, it's not just city based or language based, it's even ideology based, like religion or philosophy, or any school of thought, or any way you form an association with a fellow being, any way um, you can connect to them, you feel an affinity towards them, right? So is it all just about preserving yourself? uh, so this is so this I mean, it's from from the perspective of an organism, it's all about preserving oneself. But now let's just get back to this diagram here, right? um, so this organism, this amoeba, it's got some sort of a plasma in it, or sorry, protoplasm in it, and it's made of atoms and molecules. And if you venture deep into physics, all those uh, all those elementary particles are nothing but a manifestation of force in the medium underlying it, probably ether or something, or strings, if you want to go by the modern theory. I mean, I'm leaning favorably towards ether theory, but um, uh, so underlying medium, whether it's ether or strings, these are all either electron or proton or lepton or baryons or whatever, right? They are all manifestations of force in that medium with different orientations, like spin or velocity or wavelength or whatever, right? So it's all different manifestations of the force. So there is a whole bunch of force that makes up this organism called amoeba, right? So what is this amoeba doing? It is consuming another piece of organic thing. It is increasing in size, and then it is splitting, right? I mean, although reproduction increases the chance of survival of that biomatter as a whole. For example, if the amoeba splits into two, one of the amoeba, the child might go to a place where there is plenty of food and where there is optimal climate, whereas the other might accidentally go onto a fire and get burnt or something, right? So although reproduction increases the chances here, um, what you have to see is what is the end result of this amoeba consuming that organic material, right? I mean, if it was only to preserve itself, it would probably not split, right? Or I mean, it would split to enhance the chance of survival, but it's not just about splitting. There are certain organisms which do not reproduce as well. There are other organisms, single cell things, which do not split and reproduce, right? What it does is it simply, I mean, let's not consider the reproduction aspect of amoeba right now, but let's just say this amoeba is eating a food and getting bigger in size. Why is it doing it, right? So, I mean, if the amoeba becomes bigger in size, it would probably, there'll be more chances of it getting into a fire. Like, if the amoeba becomes a really big organism, there's more chances of it stumbling upon a fire or something and then getting burnt, right? So, why would it consume food in the first place, right? So let's not think from the level of an organism here. Let's think from the level of a force here. See, the force, the life force that makes up all the, um, atomic particles and elements and constitutes this organism called amoeba. What it is doing is it is trying to make its impact felt on other things. See, there are two things in this world. One is the medium, and the other thing is the force. Like I said, the purpose of the force is to make an impact. The purpose of a force is to go and disturb the position of a medium or make an impact on the medium and do something, right? So the force loses its purpose if it is trapped in a stationary wave and it is just standing as a particle which is not making much of other impact. A stationary wave is just standing in one place, it is not displacing any other part of the medium, it just vibrates in just one point in the medium. So the purpose of a force is to make an impact. So the purpose of the force that makes up this living organism is to make an impact by eating something else, converting that into amoeba as well, and then maybe moving, bumping on certain things, doing stuff and all those things. If this force is trapped in a stone or mud or in a rock, it's just gonna sit there and not do much. Maybe it's putting some pressure on something, but a living thing has more of a chance to make the force which is making up a living organism has more chances of making impact than, or the force that is making up an organism will be prone to making more of an impact than a force which is trapped in a non-living thing like a rock or something, right? So the ultimate aim for you as an organism, for the force that makes you up, is to make an impact. This is true right from the subatomic level, and so that is why it's not just about reproducing